Tirumala yatrai sella vendum en Tirumalayapane sevikave.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Shuklam Bharadaram Vishnum Sashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasanna Vadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vigna Upashantaye. Narayanam Namaskritya Naranchaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhirayet. Vaibhavam Divyadeshanam Puraneshu Prakirtitam Katitam Kavyarupena Krishnapremi Kasurina. Tirthasnana Palam Sarvam Kshetrayatra Palam Tatha Patatam Shrunvatam Chapi Sulabam Nahi Samshayaha. Namah Shri Ranganathaya Kaveri Madhyashayine Archavatara Sreshtaya Sarvamangaladhayine Samasta Kalyana Gunabhiramam Ramanivasam Ramaniyagатram Sashanka Chakram Jagatam Sharanyam Sri Venkatesham Sharanam Prapadye. Hare Rameti Krishneti Nama Sankirtanam Sada Lokakshemaya Kurvantam Premikam Sadgurum Bhaje. Kalaye Sundarakaram Sadaika Priyadarshanam Ajnana Nashakam Devam Sadgurum Muralidharam. Sadguru Maharaj ki Jai. With the immense grace of our beloved Guru Maharaj, Maharanyam Sri Muralidhara Swamiji, we are relishing this wonderful divine work of our Sri Sri Anna, Divyadesa Vaibhavam. In that we are experiencing the wonderful glory of the 7 hills, Venkatesha Vaibhavam. Last few weeks we have been seeing how Bhagavan in Shirabdi was approached by Narada Maharishi, who extolled him and then prayed to Bhagavan to bestow his grace upon all human beings, all living beings. And Bhagavan himself confided to our Narada Maharishi that he wishes to descend, to be one amongst us, to bestow only grace and to bestow only compassion on us. And Bhagavan himself asked Narada Maharishi, "Hey Narada Maharishi, why don't you tell me an apt place for me to descend?" Narada Maharishi, of all the places, chose a place which was parched, which was afflicted with famine, which was not very lush green, etc. And Bhagavan mockingly asked Narada Maharishi, "Is this the place you want me to descend?" And Narada Maharishi said, "Bhagavan, when Bhagavan Sri Krishna went and had a casual look at Indraprastha, he converted a desert into a lovely, beautiful, prosperous land. Likewise, when you descend, these lands will become truly prosperous and filled with abundance, and it will flourish. And these are the people, these are the lands which need your grace. Na? If somebody is already flourishing, why do they need Bhagavan? Only people who are afflicted need you, Bhagavan." Bhagavan smiled and said, "That's my sankalpa, that's my intention also, Narada Maharishi. You just spoke my heart. I shall descend near Swarnamukhi river in the Dravida Desha. And before I descend, I am going to send my most beloved companion, Adisesha, to become my seat in this wonderful earth." And it is our Adisesha who descended as the 7 hills. We saw how the head, tail and the center portion of Adisesha are the Kalahasti and Mallikarjuna Kshetra, and the center is Ahobilam, Kalahasti, Srisailam, Ahobilam. And in the 7 hills we saw the 7 wonderful hills which Bhagavan himself took as his abode, Saptagiri. And the beauty of those hills are being described now. First Bhagavata's description, then Bhagavan's description. Saptagiri is Bhagavata himself, it is Adisesha Swarupam. And we saw how beautifully the caves in the hills, generally the caves are dark, but this hill, our Adishesha ensured that the caves were filled with wonderful light, soft light of the various rare gems which is embedded in the rocks in the caves. And all the rishis came flocking to our Saptagiri. Why? Because where Bhagavan is, that's where rishis would be, Bhagavata would be, isn't it? When Bhagavan Sri Ramachandra Prabhu decided to make Chitrakutam his place, from across all aranyas, from across all forests and jungles, rishis came flocking just to be in the presence of Bhagavan. The presence of Bhagavan itself is joyful. He need not even look at us. He need not even smile at us. He need not even talk to us. But his very presence. We have felt that, na? Whenever you come into Madhurapuri, just the presence of our beloved Guru Maharaj bathes us with so much of light of joy in our heart. Likewise, all those rishis, Bhrugur Vasishto Picha Naradascha, Mrukundu Sunuhu Bhagavan Shukascha, Tataiva Manye Munayascha Sarve, Svavasamichanti Guhasu Nityam. They want to make these little caves in the 7 hills as their permanent abode. Why? Because Bhagavan has decided to descend and make these 7 hills as his permanent abode. So all the rishis came flocking there. And Sri Sri Anna here beautifully says, aprAkritam sthanam. You see, Bhagavan says, Janma karma chame divyam to our Narada, to our Arjuna. That Arjuna, though I may look like a human, though my birth may look a little human, never think it is something which is of this nature. It's not prakritam. Anything which is made of these 5 elements, which is bound by the laws of physics, the laws of universe, are all natural. But divinity is something which transcends that which is natural. So Bhagavan says, Janma karma chame divyam, it means I am aprAkrita. My every leela is aprAkrita. My jananam is aprAkrita. My karma is aprAkritam. My karma is not dictated by my past karma. My karma is solely dictated by my sweet will. Swachanta gati. And that is the reason why when we read Bhagavan's karma, it frees us from the bondage of this nature. Why? Because the karma is divyam. Bhagavan's descent is divyam. Bhagavan is divyam. So we should know the word aprAkrita, its wonderful rasa laden connotation. aprAkrita means not of this world, but divine. Krishna's name is divine. Krishna's form is divine. Krishna's leelas are divine. And Krishna's places associated with Krishna like Vrindavanam, divine. Gokulam, divine. Mathura, divine. Likewise, our Sri Sri Anna says, aprAkritam sthanam idam hinunam ime janaste pasupakshinascha aprAkritam rupam upetya vishnum pravesha matrena bhajanti hanta. Aha. When Bhagavan, who is an aprAkrita divya Mangala Murti, has decided to descend in the 7 hills, the 7 hills itself is not natural, which means the rocks we see in the 7 hills are not like rocks outside of these 7 hills, like we see in our village, etc. aprAkritam. Because the 7 hills is Adisesha himself. Adisesha is a Nitya. Nitya means one who is permanently associated with Bhagavan in Vaikuntham from time immemorial to the very end of time, if at all there is end to time. Which means our Adisesha is timeless. Anything which is timeless is aprAkritam. The same Adisesha has descended as 7 hills. Why our Sri Sri Anna is reminding us that is, when we go to a Kshetra Yatra, this is what we should remember. Not imagine, remember. Because the divine Kshetras, be it Tirumala or Sriranga or Kanchipuram or Brindavanam or Gokulam, all are divine abodes. They are not like any other village or any other town or any other hill. How do we know that? Mahatmas could not see it in any other way. The moment we say Tirumala, whom do we remember? Our beloved Ramanujacharya. Na? And we are actually recording this during the time of our Srimad Ramanuja Jayanti, the descent of a great Mahatma. We are talking about Adisesha Perumal's descent on a date when Adisesha Perumal descended in Kali as Ramanuja, Bhagavat Ramanujacharya. So on this wonderful time frame, we are discussing the descent of Adisesha Alvar as 7 hills during the time when the same Adisesha came down as Bhagavat Ramanujacharya during Kali Yuga. That's how divine plan works. So here is our Adisesha as 7 hills. AprAkritam sthanam idham hinunam. Mahatmas, especially our Bhagavat Ramanujacharya and all Mahatmas, could not see the 7 hills as another insentient hill. When we came for a Tirumala Yatra, he came for one important reason. He was very anxious. He was very anxious to learn Sri Ramayanam from his own uncle, maternal uncle. His name was Tirumala Nambi or Sri Srisailapurna, as he is called in Samskrita Bhasha. In Tamil we call Tirumala Nambigal. Nambigal means Purnaha, Purnar. So he came with tremendous enthusiasm, with tremendous thirst, which only Mahapurushas have, to learn, to hear the Kalakshepa, to hear the divine lecture from the lotus-like lips of his beloved own maternal uncle in his Purva ashrama. Of course, once you become a Yati Raja, Yati, then you have no connection with earlier family ties, etc. But Purva ashrama we say. Tirumala Nambigal was an expert in Ramayana. And Sri Ramayanam, you should listen from people who live the bhava and the values of Ramayana day by day. Tirumala Nambi, that great Acharya Purusha, was one such exceptional Acharya, which is the reason why our Yati Raja, our Ramanujacharya wanted to learn Ramayanam from Tirumala Nambigal. So imagine the greatness of that Acharya Purusha, Tirumala Nambi. He is called Tirumala Nambi because he constantly stayed in Tirumala. To be very honest, I hope you will see it in the right way. Ramanujacharya came all the way to Tirumala not just for our Srinivasa Perumal darshan, but for the Kalakshepa, but to listen to Ramayana from Tirumala Nambigal. Imagine the greatness of Ramayana and the greatness of this great Acharya Purusha. He came. As he came closer and closer and closer, he saw this grand, lush green 7 hills spread across the horizon at the foothills of Saptagiri. He saw this wonderful Saptagiri, immediately folded his hands. Tears started rolling from his eyes. His throat was choked with devotion. And then he asked for a piece of cloth from one of the Sishyas who came with him and started tying his legs. People who were nearby didn't understand what this great Acharya Purusha was doing. Ramanujacharya he tied his legs and started virtually crawling on the hills with his knees and hand. Acharya Purusha, such a senior, what senior? Greatest Acharya Purusha. And he was slowly crawling this hill. Can you imagine walking up a hill? Now we have wonderful steps, etc. You have a shade above. But those days, nothing was there. It was a rugged hill. And our Acharya Purusha is climbing on all fours, 2 hands and knees. And while he was climbing that way, nobody could dare ask the Acharya Purusha, Swamin, why? Who can ask? Gambhira Purusha. At that point of time, the news reached his own Purvashrama, maternal uncle, Tirumala Nambi. When he heard about it, he felt very sad. Yatirajar, coming in all the force, hurting his knees, hurting his hands with ragged stones, pebbles, thorns on the way. He couldn't bear it. He came running down to dissuade Ramanujacharya from walking this way, to beg Yatiraja Swami to actually walk normally. So the moment he came and saw this second Bhaskara, this second Surya called Ramanujacharya, actually in splendor of his tejas, his eyes slightly reddened in the edges because of the devotional ebb in his heart. And this brilliant form of Yatiraja wearing this saffron cloth on his waist, with Tridandam, with wonderful Urdhva Pundram, wide eyes stretching up to the ears, sharp nose, and divine lips, and a lovely rounded divine countenance face, and a conch like neck with broad chest, wearing the wonderful Upanayana, Punul in him, and with his legs tied to his thighs and walking on all fours on the knees. The moment our Tirumala Nambi, Sri Srisailapurna came, saw this, he immediately folded his hands, paid his respects to the Acharya, even though he was his maternal uncle, even though Bhagavat Ramanujacharya came only to learn from him in Acharya Sthana, still Ashrama Dharma. Our Sri Srisailapurna was a Grihastha. Here is not just Yati Raja. So he showed his respect for the ashrama. He showed his respect for this divine Purusha, divine Mahavatara, which is our Bhagavat Ramanujacharya, and said, Devarir, Swamin, like this if you start climbing, what is this? Why are you doing this? This is paining all of us out here. Bhagavat Ramanujacharya, because he was in Acharya Sthana, he confided, Swami, what can I do? The moment I came to the foothills of this wonderful Divya Kshetra, I am not able to see the hill. I am seeing only Adisesha here. Adisesha being the foremost of all the servants and companions of Bhagavan. How can I bring myself to treat this divine Adisesha with my feet? Would this not be the height of showing disrespect to the greatest of all companions of Bhagavan? How can I ever put my feet on this hill? Because it's Adisesha. Yet I want to come above, yet I want to scale the peak. Not just for Bhagavan's darshana, but more for your darshana and your wonderful Katha Shravana I have come. How can I ever bring myself to walk, to put my feet on this great Bhagavata's lap? How can I ever do that? Our Sri Srisailapurna was shocked, surprised, held our Bhashyakara's hand and said, Bhagavan, you yourself, he thought, he himself is Adisesha's avatara. There is no harm in Adisesha treading on himself. Is there a harm? Only if we do it, it's a problem. It is the same Adisesha who came as Bhagavat Ramanujacharya. He himself is thinking how to put my feet on the other Rupam of Adisesha. Yet he told Bhagavat Ramanujacharya, Bhagavan, if you start doing this, yadyat acharati shreshtaha, whatever a great person or an acharya does as an acharana would be followed by people who come after him till eternity. Our Srinivasa Perumal has taken the abode on the 7 hills for the sole reason of giving darshanam to scores of people, millions of people, so that they can all be blessed. If they come to know our beloved Purva Acharya, our beloved Bhagavat Ramanujacharya himself was walking with his knees and hands only, and he could not bring himself to put his feet on the hill. Who would dare to even climb the hill? Then which Sevarthi would come to have darshan, Swami? Please, out of your infinite compassion, please let go of this vrata of yours and please walk normally for the sake of humanity, for all our sake, so that people can come in millions and have the darshan of Perumal. Because it was a senior Bhagavata and Vaishnava requesting Bhagavat Ramanujacharya, and he held this great Vaishnava, Sri Vaishnava as Acharya Sthana. Bhagavat Ramanujacharya decided to go by what he said. He agreed. Then he said, Swamin Sri Srisailapurna re, Swamin Nambigale, to tell this to me, you came all the way at your senior age from the top of Tirumala to the foothills of Tirumala just to tell this to me. You could have just found some Siru Payyan or Siruvan, a small boy you could have sent who is very junior. To tell this message, would that not suffice for me? If the message came from you, would I ever disagree? Sri Srisailapurna said, Bhagavan, actually I wanted to do that. But when I looked around this Tirumala for somebody who is a small boy, or somebody who is a junior, for somebody who is a Siruvan, I found everybody aprAkritam. I found everything in this hill divine. And the only Sirupayal was only me. Adiyen தான் the Siruvan. எனக்கு வேற யாரையும் சின்னதாவே தெரியல. எல்லாரும் பகவத் ஸ்வரூபமாவே தெரியுது. I could not find anybody lesser than me in the entire Tirumala. Everybody looked divine. And so I decided there is nobody lesser than me except me. Everybody in this Tirumala is greater than me in all respects because they looked very divine to me. So I myself came down to supplicate this. Immediately Bhashyakara thought, this is how a Sri Vaishnava should be. Na? Trinadapi sunichena, tharorapi sahishnuna, amaninam manadena, kirtaniya sadahari. The hallmark of a Sri Vaishnava or a Krishna Bhakta or a Srinivasa Perumal Bhakta is humility. Our Acharya Purushas showed that in their life, in their words, in their every breath. And Bhagavat Ramanujacharya showed his respects and started walking towards the hill. aprAkritam sthanam idam hinunam ime janaste pashupakshinascha aprAkritam roopam upetya vishnum pravesha matrena bhajanti hanta. Our Bhagavat Ramanujacharya could not see this divine hill as another normal hill. And when his own purvacharya, maternal uncle, Sri Srisailapurna, wanted to find somebody junior to send for a message to our Bhagavat Ramanujacharya, he saw everybody as somebody who is divine, everybody as a very superior devotee of the Lord. And the reason is because he says, did not our Kulashekara Peruman, our Kulashekara Alvar say, Ooneru selvathu udar piraviyan vendeen, aanerel vendran adimai Tirumallal, Kooneru sangamidattan tan Thiruvenkadathu, Kooneri vaazhum kurugai pirappene. In 10 pasurams, this great Alvar, this great divine devotee of Bhagavan, pours out his heart saying that, Bhagavan, I beg you of only one thing. I don't want any of these worldly pleasures. I don't want heavenly pleasures. I don't even want the post of Brahmaji. All I want is in this wonderful little pond in Tirumala, can I become a crane? In this wonderful Pushkarani, Swami Pushkarani, can I become a fish? In this wonderful Tirumala, where there are these great bees singing around your songs of glories, can I become a tree which spreads the fragrance of a champaka flower? Finally, he says, can I become anything in this hill? Just bless me to get a janma, a birth, as anything in this hill. So when Alvar sings like that, this Acharya Purusha says, whenever I look at anybody in this world, I don't know what embodiment of which Alvar is this person whom I am talking to. When I even see a dog in the streets of Tirumala, I am not even sure what dog is this. When these birds are chirping in Tirumala, I don't know which Alvar has taken the form of the bird to sing sweetly the glories of our Perumal. So how can I ever find somebody lower than me? Whenever I see anybody around me, I always feel that they are greater than me. AprAkritam. This anything which is associated with this Tirumala, our Acharya Purusha says, aprAkritam sthanam idam hinunam ime janaste pashu pakshinascha aprAkritam rumam upetya vishnum pravesha matrena bhajanti hantaha. Everything which enters into our Tirumala becomes a devotee of Tirumala and starts doing service or bhajana of our Srinivasa Perumal. How can I ever find somebody inferior or junior to me? Says this Mahapurusha who has the stature to even do the Kalakshepa of Ramayana with our Bhashyakara. Such is the divine nature of our Tirumala. I told you about Bhagavat Ramanujacharya and one of the 5 great Mahatmas who took the position of even one of the 5 Acharyas of Sri Bhagavat Ramanujacharya. Now let us look at an incredible story of a Sishya of Bhagavat Ramanujacharya who is also related to the Tirumala. His very name is Ananthazhwar. Anantha means the wonderful Ananta Nag, which is our Adisesha. His name bears the wonderful divine name of our Adisesha. And that Ananthazhwar was ordained by our Ramanujacharya to actually stay in Tirumala to take care of the gardens, you see. So whenever people say Ananthazhwar, as a paribhasha it means a garden dedicated to Perumal. The garden was called Ananthazhwar. Why? Because he lived, he breathed, and his entire life was dedicated to maintaining a garden for our Srinivasa Perumal. If you ever see a lovely garden, Nandavana, dedicated to any Srinivasa Perumal anywhere in the world, the apt name for that garden is Ananthazhwan. You see, he lived for it. That's how Kainkariam is. They live for one value. They live for one idea of an Acharya Purusha, and their entire life is dedicated. And after 1000 years, we are talking about this great Sishya of Bhagavat Ramanujacharya. Why? He dedicated his life, breath, and his body, his walk, his mind to one idea to serve Bhagavan. The idea was not his, the idea is Acharya Purusha's. That Ananthazhwar also had this tremendous love for Tirumala. Why? Because his Acharya has tremendous love for Tirumala. You see, whenever I think our Ananthazhwar used to do the dhyana of Tirumala, you know what dhyana he does? He does the lovely dhyana of his wonderful Acharya Purusha, Bhagavat Ramanujacharya, and see the Tirumala in the heart of his Acharya. This is how a Sishya will do dhyana. Na? Even if a Sishya wants to do the dhyana of Radha Krishna Yugalam, if he is an Acharya Nishta, how will he do the dhyana? He would first see the Acharya Purusha in his heart. And in the heart of the Acharya Purusha who is in his heart, he would see the lovely Yugalam. And that's how he would do the Yugala Dhyana being an Acharya Nishta. That's how Madhurakavi Alvar also did the dhyana of Krishna. Now, who can ever not do the dhyana of this lovely Damodara Krishna? But he said, Kanninun Sirithambinal Kattunna Panniya Perumayan Ennappanil Annikkum Amudurum. You see. My Acharya, which is Sri Nammalvar, was constantly in the state of Bhava Samadhi, remembering Damodara Krishna. And so he said, I am meditating on my Acharya who is meditating on the little Krishna who allowed himself to be bound by the cords of devotion of his mother. The fine cord, kanni nun siruthambu, is not a physical prakrita bondage. It is aprAkritam prema bandham. Kattunnappan. This is how a Shishya would do the dhyana. Na? So our Ananthazhwar had tremendous love for anything related to Tirumala, because our Bhagavat Ramanujacharya had tremendous love for anything related with Tirumala, because the Alvars had tremendous love for anything related to Idhudan Sampradayam. You see, starting from my purvacharyas, I constantly bear their loving thoughts of their heart in my heart, while including them along with their idea which is glowing in their heart, which I am sure you understand now. So Ananthazhwar had this tremendous love, and Ananthazhwar also was very clear. Ime janaste pasu pakshinascha aprAkritam roopam upetya Vishnum pravesha matrena bhajanti antaha. Vishnum bhajanti. When all these living organisms, anything which is living or even so-called non-living, is all a devotee of Perumal. So once our Ananthazhwar decided with all his Sishyas to do a small yatra up to Ananta Padmanabhan, from the Ananta hill to Ananta Padmanabhan by our Ananthazhwar. He decided to take a journey, actually to do the smarana of his Acharya, enjoying, relishing each and every sthana. This is how we also enjoy now. When we go to Tirumala, we remember how our Acharya Purusha relished Srinivasa Perumal. That's why we sing Madhura Geetam whenever we go to a Perumal Sannidhi. When we go to Srirangam, we remember how our Acharya had his experiences in Srirangam, Bhava in Srirangam, and we relish Sriranganatha along with the Bhava of our Acharya. When we go to Navatirupatis, we remember the lovely yatra our Acharya took all of us for the Navatirupati. It is same with Brindavanam, it is same with Ananta Padmanabham. So our Ananthazhwar took all his Sishyas to take them on a journey of remembering, reminiscing the lovely Anubhava of Bhagavat Ramanujacharya in all these Kshetras, Acharya Nishtana. And so they all started. And since it takes a long time to reach there, they decided to take the holy prasada of our Tirupati Perumal for their journey, for whatever little alpaharam they will take in their journey. So they had this big bundle of prasada from Tirumala. They all started. They descended down, taking the permission, anugnya of Perumal. They all started on this lovely yatra, which is Acharya Anubhava Yatra in Divyadesam. This is how we should see, because he was an Acharya Nishta. While they were traveling, they walked down the hill, chanting the names of Ramanujayati, 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 Ramanuja, Ramanujayati, Ramanuja, Yati Ramanuja, Yati Ramanuja, with the wonderful names of their Acharya in their lips. Jai Jai Govinda, Jaya Hari Govinda, Jai Jai Govinda, Jaya Hari Govinda, with the lovely names of our Srinivasa Perumal in their lips, with all the wonderful Sri Suktis of Acharya, with the lovely Sri Suktis of all the Alvars. They all went on a joyous tour. They descended the 7 hills. They walked. They must have covered quite a distance, at least 30-40 kilometers down south. At that point of time, the Shishyas went and supplicated to their Acharya, Swami, it is time for us to take a little Antaryami Aradhana, as they call it, a little prasadam. And our Ananthazhwar happily said, take the prasada bundle, let us open the prasada bundle. To the utter dismay of some of the Sishyas, when they opened the bundle, it was infested with ants. They didn't know where this ants managed to, get into this bundle. Obviously, the bundle was carried by a Sishya, so the ants must have come from Tirumala itself. So when they opened the prasada, What could have happened? A Shishya would have said, prasada is a prasada. We can, slowly dispel the ants without hurting them and take the prasada. Or somebody could have said, well, it is infested with ants, so I don't think we can take this prasada. Let us leave the bundle there so that at least the ants get the bhagyam of Tirumala prasada. We will proceed with other bundles so that we don't hurt the ants and we can't take the prasada because it is infested with ants. We may unwittingly even hurt an ant while eating the prasada, which is mahapapam. Ananthazhwar had different plans. Immediately he told his Shishya, immediately pack this bundle. Pack this bundle. And the Shishya didn't know what to do, so he packed the bundle with the ants in it. There were 2 ants running out. He says, pick the ants, put it back into the bundle and pack it. So they all packed it. Then they said, then Ananthazhwar said, let's all go back to Tirupati. Why should our Acharya go back to Tirupati? Because there were ants in the prasada. Of course, Sri Vaishnava Acharyas don't see all the sagunam and all that stuff, nimittam and all that. They say, it is a bad saguna, let us go back. Why did our Acharya do this? He took the entire bundle back with the same names of his Acharya in the lips, with the smile in his lips, with our lovely thoughts of Acharya in his lips and in his heart. He took it back to Tirumala. When they were in the peak of Tirumala, in a small little forest, he said, now open the bundle. And they opened the bundle. Then one of the Sishyas asked, Swamin, we don't understand. Of course, we can't understand what Acharya does, but we would like to know the reason for Acharya to come back in a yatra which we had taken the permission from our Tirumala Perumal, Tirumala Yappan, and you have brought everything back here. What is the reason? May we know? Ananthazhwar said, do you know what our Kulasekara Perumal is praying to our Swami? He is saying, would I not be a crane in the pond, in some pond in Tirumala? Will I not be a fish swimming in the pond of Swami Pushkarini? Will I not be even a small vessel which collects the Uchishta of our Perumal as Argyam, Padyam, Achamaniyam, Samarpayami? Would I not be a slab of stone in the Sannidhi of our Perumal so that that padi, that step, can always look at the wonderful, divine, ruddy lips of Perumal and relish it? That's why the last step after which you cross and enter into the Sannidhi is called Kulasekara Padi. Padi means step, the threshold of the door. Why? Because Alvar himself prayed to Bhagavan, will I not become a small step in front of you so that I can constantly look at your lovely beauty even when the screen is closed? And finally the Alvar says, Em Peruman Pun Malai Mel Yede Numavene. Let me become something, not even someone, something in the 7 hills. When our Alvar is praying for that, when that is the bhava of our purvacharyas, these ants have somehow got the fortune of being an ant in 7 hills. We should not be the cause for the ants to be separated from its vision of being something in the 7 hills. We don't know which Alvar it is, we don't know which great devotee it is, which great, it can be even a Nitya or a Mukta in this form wanting to be in Tirumala. And so when we were separating these ants along with the prasada, I could not bring myself to take the ants from Tirumala and throw it outside Tirumala. In fact, I wanted to make sure not even one living organism or not even one object of Tirumala is not separated from Tirumala. Let those great Mahatmas, these ants, be reunited with Tirumala. That's why I brought everything here. So when we say that Acharya Purushas, Bhaktas see everything as divine in Tirumala, it is not just wordplay, it is not just vaichal, it is actually the bhava, and that's what they see, not even what they believe in, that's their experience. And all their acts only go on to reflect their true experience of their heart, which is everything in this hill is divine. And that is the beauty of this divine hill, aprAkritam. And if we have this bhava when we walk the hill, then the experience would be aladi, experience would be unparalleled. Each step we take, looking at around the hill and saying, which Mahatma is this wonderful tree? Our Sri Sri Anna has summed up this experience of these devotees, this Alvar, into a lovely song, a prayer. Tava charanam bhuja chayayam mama dayaya vasam dehi Shri Rama bhava kamalasana balari pramukha bruntaraka sevya charana sumukha. Our Sri Sri Anna is summing up the lovely experience of Kulashekara Alvar. He is praying to our Srinivasa Perumal, Rama, Sri Rama. Why Sri Rama? Our Kulashekara Alvar was a great devotee, ardent devotee of the lovely form, leela, story and the qualities of Sri Ramachandra Prabhu. So, our Sri Sri Anna is addressing Srinivasa Perumal as Sri Rama himself. And is praying, Tava charanam bhuja, in your lotus feet, in the shadow of your lotus feet, somehow out of your infinite compassion, give me a place of refuge so that I can always be there under your feet. And who are you, Srinivasa Perumal? Bhava Kamalasana, great Adhikarika Purushas like Brahma, Shiva and Indra, they all are constantly worshipping your lotus feet. Under the shadow of such a wonderful lotus feet, please give me constant vasam. Please give me constant abode, refuge. And how do you want to be under my feet? He is answering, Tava punyata take mino bhavamiva Tava divya mandire stambo bhavamiva Tava pushpavanepi tarur bhavamiva Tava dasya rasiko bhrutyo bhavamiva Tava charanam bhuja chayayam mama dayaya vasam dekhi Shri Rama Tava punyatata. In your Swami Pushkarini, may I be a small little fish. And in your lovely divine temple, let me be at least a pillar or a small slab of stone across your door. And in your lovely Nandavanam, in your lovely garden, let me be a tree offering you flowers and fruits for your seva. And let me be a slave, a servant to constantly relish the sweetness of your divine service. Okay, you want to be all that? What do you want from this? What do you want from this? Do you want Samrajyam? Do you want Brahma's post? Or do you want freedom from samsara as Kaivalya Mukti? What do you want? Kamaye nagham samrajya siddhim Kamaye nagham parameshtya praptim Kamaye nagham Kaivalya muktim. Then what is that you want? Kamaye tava eva charanabja bhaktim. Prabhu, I don't want any of these worldly bhoga or even a divine bhoga of being a Brahma himself. Neither do I want escape from samsara in form of Kaivalyam. What is that I want? Kamaye tavaiva. One and only thing which I want is charanabja bhaktim. Let me have this tremendous love towards your lotus feet. That's all I want. Alvar's heart. Seshagirivasa Stritha Soma Srinivasa Keshava Satyakama Sishupalakamsa Ravana Bhima Sridhara Premika Kridaya Rama. Our Sri Anna's Kirtan. And so our Ananthazhwar said these ants could be any great Mahapurusha, and we should not deny them this wonderful fortune of being in Tirumala all the time. And hence, my dear ones, I brought him back here. So now do you understand this word? aprAkritam. People lived it. Mahatmas lived that value, that anything associated with Tirumala is aprAkritam. aprAkritam sthanam idam hinunam ime janaste pasupakṣinascha aprAkritam rupam upetya vishnum pravesha matrena bhajanti hantaha. All you need to do to get love towards Bhagavan is to enter the wonderful divine 7 hills. Rest is all taken care. The ambience, the divine ambience will ensure that we will have that lovely bhakti towards Bhagavan. And whenever people enter the 7 hills, why did Bhagavan descend in the 7 hills? To completely dispel this affliction because of samsaram. Na? When you enter the 7 hills, you will first experience this coolness of the breeze, which will also dispel the affliction of samsara, the heat of samsara in our hearts. That's what our Sri Anna says. Samsevate chandana vrikṣavāyuhu samāgatāne Vishnu vilokanāya samsara tāpam harati vasadyaha pravesha matrena vrishadri shringe. The moment we enter Vrishachalam, the moment we enter this wonderful Saptagiri, what happens is this wonderful Chandana Vriksha Vayu, this Vayu Bhagavan entering through the wonderful groves of the Chandana, sandalwood forest, takes the sweet fragrance and also takes the coolness of this wonderful sandalwood forest, and then enters into these 7 hills to cool down the wonderful devotees coming to have the divine darshan of Perumal, who come to have the darshan of Perumal. So the moment we enter into the 7 hills, our samsara thapam, the heat of our samsara, is immediately dispelled. And remembering this wonderful benign 7 hills in itself dispels the heat of various troubles, worries and samsara tapa in our heart. That is the beauty of the Venkatachala Mahatmyam. Let us slowly walk, ascend these 7 hills, mentally, vicariously in the actual weeks to come, so that we can also feel the joy of the darshan of our Aishwarya Srinivasa Perumal in the near future. Kayena vacha manasendriyaiर्va buddhyatmana va prakrite swabhavat karomi yatyat sakalam parasmai narayana yeti samarpayami. Sadguru Maharaj ki jai.